Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur. I hope that you're doing well. I hope you're having a great start to this week. After yesterday's thrilling final in the Euro Cup, heartbreaking for so many, and joyful, of course, for anybody who's cheering for Italy, you can take all your Booker prizes and your Nobel prizes and all your medals and throw them in the nearest dustbin. Because we're talking about The Damned United from David Peace. This book is amazing. David Peace is quite possibly my favorite living, active novelist. Every book I've read from him, I've just been fascinated by. I can't get out of my mind. And this book is no exception. It is a fictional, imagined story, totally told from the point of view of Brian Clough, who never managed England. And this is primarily focused on the infamous 44 days. That's right, just 44 days, in which he was managing Leeds United, a title-winning team, a team that had been incredibly successful across the past decade, and he took them over. And it was a disaster. And so we see his consciousness, we see how haunted he is by his past, by his injuries, by his failures. He's haunted by the possibility of future failures. He's consumed by that, and his ambition and his doubt and fear collide in the consciousness that we are presented with in this book, and it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's my favorite soccer novel, although there's not a huge number of those, but it really is just a book that I love. I do want to warn you though, it is incredibly profane. We're in his consciousness, and so the F word is coming out, along with numerous other words are just coming out regularly. I won't have any in the readings, but I did want to give a sense of what's happening in this book. How harrowing is it? I see it from the motorway, through the windscreen, the kids in the back, falling off the top of Beeston Hill. Are we nearly there yet, they're saying. Are we nearly there, Dad? In a heap up against the railway and the motor banking, asking me about Billy Bremner and Johnny Giles. The floodlights in the stands, all fingers and fists up from the sticks and the stones, the flesh and the bones. There it is, my eldest is telling my youngest. There it is, from the motorway, through the windscreen. Hateful, hateful place. Spiteful, spiteful place. Elland Road. Leeds. I've seen it before, been here before. Played and managed here 6 or 7 times in 6 or 7 years. Always a visitor, always away. Hateful, spiteful place, flecked in their phlegm. But not today. Wednesday, 31st July, 1974. Today I'm no longer a visitor, no longer away. No more zombies, they whisper. No more bloody zombies, Brian. Today, I'm on my way to work there. So his first day of work, and he's already consumed by the past half decade of, soccer matches at the stadium. The zombies whispering in his ear, talking about phlegm and hate and spite. And it's just brutal. And so that's what we see. We see his conscience. We see what a disaster these 7 weeks are as he utterly fails with this new team. We see that he's perhaps been lied to and left in a situation that's not as good as he perhaps thought it was. But the parallel consciousness is just as brutal, because there's 2 parallel narratives within the novel. There's the starting one, which I just read from, where it's in this first person eye, and we're just constantly seeing the harrowing degradation of this man across these 7 weeks as it's a disaster. But the parallel narrative that intersperses in, and it's in italics, kind of like we see in certain Faulkner books that deal with different timelines. The parallel narrative is always from the second person. It's you. And it's his past. It's his start as a player, how he's injured, how he then becomes a manager, some success he has, but his failures. And so we see these paralleling each other across, a 44-day span, and then about a 12-year span. Paralleling each other, and ultimately the second person narrative, the past tense, ending with him taking the job that he is starting on the first page. But that parallel narrative shows other things. You are on your way. You, Peter, Dave Mackay in Derby County. These are the happiest hours of your life. This old, unfashionable, run-of-the-mill, humdrum provincial little club is on the bloody up, and the board and Sam Longson can't do enough for you. The happiest hours and days of your life. The keys to his cars, his holiday homes, and his drinks cabinet, his wallet and his safe. Longson has had you in the York Hotel when you first came down to Derby. Then he moved you over to the Midland, the hotel where you later set up Dave and Roy, the hotel that's now a home from home for you and the whole bloody team. Longson then helped you and your wife and children find a house just outside Derby. a home of your own, the happiest hours, days, and weeks of your life. You sweep the terraces and you sign the players. You take the training and you do the mail. You clean the baths and you water the grass. You talk to the press and you talk on the telly. You walk the pitch every Sunday morning and you plot, 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 and plot. The happiest hours, days, weeks, and months of your life. Plot to stay top, plot to go up, plot to stay up, plot the happiest times of your life. And happiest hours and days of your life, and you're plotting the whole time. And that insistent you that occurs within that narrative, it's Clough having this almost the character Clough, not the real Clough. This character Clough having this imaginative like recrimination about the past and constantly saying like you did this to himself as his whole world, and to a certain extent his career seems to be unraveling around him. And so it's brilliant. It is absolutely harrowing, though. It's certainly not a book that I would recommend to everybody. Like I said, there's a huge amount of profane language, and it does. Peace does this in some of his books, where he builds these insistent, repetitive, sort of calling cards that characters have, where they'll say Leeds, 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 like a soccer chant, and that's what this character keeps hearing echoing in his mind, and haunting him. And just little things that repeat and build. And you either view that and you're like, good night, like I'm done with this, or it becomes almost like a chant. And it works to great effect. And so we see that he mentions at one point, he's talking about the next day. 3 o'clock or thereabouts on Saturday afternoon, I will have to lead out that team at Wembley. His team, not mine. 3 o'clock, I will have to stand side by side with the great Bill Shankly. It'll be Shankly's last bow, having retired in July. His last chance to lead out a team of his at Wembley. The Wembley Way, the Twin Towers, the Empire Stadium, the tunnel, the national anthem, the handshakes, the presentations, the crowd, the kickoff. 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I wish I wasn't there. Anywhere but there. And you just, you get these senses of where he's at in his headspace. Even in the past, you run out onto the pitch at the Den in the Millwall away kit, and the Millwall players line up to applaud you, applaud your promotion. But it's not promotion you're thinking about today. 2 bloody points in that effing title is all you're thinking about today. And from the kickoff, you control the match. You take it by the scruff of its bloody neck and never let it effing go. Not to Millwall, not to their fans, not to the bloody acrobatics of their keeper king, not to the effing dust and wind that bellows round Cold Blow Lane. Nothing is going to stop you. No way. Not today. Bloody nothing. Not Millwall, not their fans, not their keeper, not the dust and not the wind, not today. Mackay rolls a short free kick to Webster. Webster runs down the right wing. Webster crosses to McFarland. McFarland heads it back across their goal to Carlin, and Willie nods at home to score the only goal of the game. Short, sweet, simple football, and you are the champions. The champions of Division 2. You are the champions. And so you see how the repetition builds, but it gets refracted and changed in his mind and in his memories. And I found it absolutely amazing to read. I'm going to include a couple of videos of actual Brian Clough doing interviews. When I mentioned at the beginning the bit about the bins, and he infamously, allegedly, had told players, like, take all your caps and throw them in the trash bin because you all cheated to win those. And in real life, like, this really happened. He did actually manage Leeds United, which had been a team he had excoriated in the press, in print, and in like interviews for years. He'd excoriated him, and then he took him over, and for 7 weeks had a disastrous run as their manager, and they went from being the top team to a like bottom 4 team, and so it did really happen. But to see it unfold in this imagined way is quite impressive. I should note that Peace in this book had included players who were still alive. Clough was no longer alive, but certain players were, including John Giles, who sued him about the way his character was drawn in this book. So depending on the edition you get, there are slightly different print revisions involving certain characters. He also had a great bit in the interview on the day he took over, where he said, "Oh, they've been good champions, but they haven't been loved. They haven't been beloved. They haven't worn the crown well in terms of being loved," and just said all these things. So to see that is wonderful. David Peace does have another great soccer novel, Red or Dead, which is from the point of view of Bill Shankly, who is mentioned in Damned United, and had managed Liverpool, and which is the Red or Dead. And it's very similar in terms of like the repetitions that occur from what I understand. Now, Peace, of course, his first 5 books, I believe, were all crime novels. And there's a way in which The Damned United feels like this harrowing, haunted, crime novel. But from those, we have GB84, which reimagines the 1984-1985 coal miners' strike from a couple of different characters and brings in different points of view. But we see that same insistent, like, hammering, within the minds of the characters who are in that moment. Peace himself has talked about Alma, or Alma Cogan, by Gordon Byrne, which was an imagined novel telling the biography of an entertainer who had died young and reimagining celebrity, like if she had lived longer, what might her life have been like. And so this is a book he's explicitly mentioned as a reference. The book, though, that I was thinking of, and specifically with like the dual narratives and the way that they work together in The Damned United, would be GBH by Ted Lewis. I read this in March 2020, and this is just an absolutely astonishing crime novel, and it's a novel that has those dual narratives that ultimately reveal so much more about what's going on. In terms of books that reveal like a very insistent point of view on history, 2 that come to mind are, of course, Boswell's London Journal, and another would be the notebooks of Victor Serge. So Serge famously has Memoirs of a Revolutionary, where he presents sort of his side of things, and then when you read his notebooks, you see a very different side. You see sort of like a more authentic, real side of what was going on in his mind as he's thinking through his memoirs. And so this is just this also is just filled with great details around 1930s Europe, 1940s exiles, both exiles from after the Russian Revolution and from the takeover of the Soviet Union by Stalin, and the various individuals, like some of whom had been revolutionaries or leftists, who fled in exile. He interacts with Trotsky in Mexico and things like that. That haunting narrative, I did think of Krapp's Last Tape from Samuel Beckett. I'm not a Beckett fan. I don't know what it says that I love David Peace and can't stand Samuel Beckett. But the other one I was thinking of course, was Dostoevsky, specifically Notes from Underground, and certain aspects of Raskolnikov. If this book was rewritten with sort of a first-person point of view for Raskolnikov, that type of like insistent, like just scratching at the consciousness and cutting deeper is what I get when I read The Damned United from David Peace. So I did certainly enjoy it. Let me know if you've read this book, if you have other favorite soccer books. Maybe we'll see a Fever Pitch fan out there. And of course, as I said, I highly recommend it, but it involves a huge amount of profanity, and you do get those repetitious like chants throughout the narrative. So again, I hope everybody's doing well. I really enjoyed this past Euro Cup, and I am sorry about the penalties, but it was a thrilling ride. So thanks, everybody.